Hi everybody, my name is Maria, and as you may be able to tell, I'm an SGA Senator presenting a few of my initiatives virtually tonight. For this video, I'm presenting my primary initiative, which revolves around the topic of sexual assault on campus. I'll be going over my specific initiative within this broad topic, why I believe it's necessary at UMBC, and of course the obstacles that I've run into along the way. My initiative is ongoing, and I hope to definitely make a lot more improvements and updates in the future as well to get it going. Hopefully you'll be able to stay tuned throughout the year. To start off, like I mentioned earlier, the main idea of my initiative concerns sexual assault on campus. I knew going into this year that I wanted my primary initiative to surround this idea, but I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do back in the summer. I think, especially when we think back to the 2018 protests on campus, there is definitely a noticeable disconnect between our student body and administration when it comes to the response and care with handling sexual assault cases. I decided to talk to as many people as I could to see where I could find my in, or rather, my specific initiative that I could work on. I was able to meet with officials from OEI, the We Believe You Club, several students that went to UMBC during the 2018 protests and made significant changes with Retrieve for Courage, the police department, and so on. What I gathered from all these preliminary meetings and conversations was that my feelings of this disconnect between admin and students was definitely valid. Because of the university's past, trust is certainly an area that is lacking between these groups on campus. And so I was so excited to learn from all the folks that I met that there is active work constantly being done every day to combat these obstacles and to truly make a difference in response to the students that came forward 2 years ago. However, there is always room for improvement and more work to be done. Everyone that I met welcomed me on board, and after talking to representatives from Florida State University, I realized something UMBC didn't have was a proper survivors or victims advocate position on campus. Also, as a note, some universities call this the victims advocate position, but I'll be referring to it as the survivors advocate position from here on out because the former terminology is a little bit outdated and unfitting. So to put it all together briefly, the survivors advocate position is a resource for sexual assault survivors on a university campus that provides them with legal aid as well as emotional support. The reason why this is necessary is because a highlight of this position is that it's entirely confidential. The Office of Equity and Inclusion is amazing, as is the Women's Center, but both of these areas on campus are quasi-confidential. So from my understanding, this wouldn't give a survivor the complete security blanket that they may need, and many survivors often do need this. Many survivors do not want to immediately go to Title IX and go through court proceedings, especially in the emotional state that they could be in. Also, there are so many survivors on campus that may have experienced sexual assault from a very young age, and it may not have had anything to do with it occurring on campus. But these survivors should be offered this type of support too, and this type of support comes with the survivors advocate position. And like I mentioned earlier, being able to meet with officials around campus has been a blessing. OEI, the Women's Center, We Believe You, and so many areas have offered me invaluable information that I'm working with at the moment. I also want to bring up that in the earlier stages of my initiative, when I didn't specifically know what area I wanted to tackle, I did meet with the police department and identified an area of improvement being the police training regarding sexual assault. I want to follow up with this in the future, but it's currently on pause as I'm taking on the main challenge with my initiative and want to give my full focus to that. Being able to contact Florida State University and get in touch with them was also super helpful because that's where I first started exploring their implementation of the survivors advocate position. I'm now trying to see how they are maneuvering around it with recent updates to Title IX regulations, which I will get into shortly. COVID-19 has definitely impacted work around campus since it's very dependent on the virtual atmosphere and setting. The good news is that because of all these amazing organizations on campus, they're already working on this initiative, and so it was already about to be up and running last school year. However, COVID-19 hit us, though what's interesting about this is that the initiative hasn't taken off yet because of recent amendments to the regulations of Title IX as of August 2020 and not because of COVID-19. The funding and logistics for this position was set in place, but then these regulations were updated and now state that if there's a survivors advocate position on campus, then there must also be a respondents advocate position on campus. From my understanding, this means that there also must be funding to support a position that would be targeted towards helping those who a sexual assault survivor accused. This is where a lot of obstacles come in. There isn't funding, I think, for this additional position, nor does it make sense to house it in the same location as the survivors advocate position. Would it make sense to force a sexual assault survivor to sit in the same waiting room for emotional support across from his or her perpetrator? It doesn't really make sense to me, and so what I'm currently trying to do is see how other universities maneuvered around this issue. Also, I wanted to note that these regulations were made underneath the Trump administration, and so right now, as I'm recording this, there is heavy stress around the elections. All of that could have a big impact on this as well. As for the future and what I've planned, I would love to receive any feedback from you. I'm sitting on the Sexual Misconduct Group in the Inclusion Council and hope to use that position to my advantage for this initiative. Like I mentioned, it's also dependent on the outcome of some political events that occur in the near future and how the different implementations for the Respondents Advocate could really look like at UMBC. I hope you learned something new from this presentation and thank you for listening about my initiative.